Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today. And a special welcome to Caroline and Gregory. Greg. Your mom told me, Greg. And this is a surprise to Caroline and Greg. So by the time you see this, it will no longer be a surprise. Happy wedding day to you both. The best. My name is Dan Nelson. Maybe you know that by now. And I'm here to paint not your wedding, I'm here to repaint your reception, especially your first dance. Now, let me take a minute to show all of you a couple things. We're getting a ring on our audio. I hope it's just in my monitor, not in yours. See that in my room that I'm in. Truly spectacular setting. This is the Mediterranean ballroom at the historic Breakers Hotel. The Breakers. On the spectacular setting. Terrible whistle, and I really hope that's. Hello, R. Harn. Can you tell me, Mr. R. Harn, or Mrs. R. Harn, are you getting a bad whistle in the audio? Let me know if you are. As I said, I hope it's just me. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and modify a couple things here. Can you tell me, Mr. R. Harn, or anybody else, please let me know if you're getting a Right, so those first lines were just a bit of water-soluble pastel. And Caroline and Greg, I'm sure this is the first time you are getting whistle. Okay, bear with me then just a minute, gang. Let me see what I can do about that. Ooh. Well, great. Just quit, didn't it? Hallelujah. May all your problems be so small. So I was starting to say, Caroline and Greg, evidently this is the first time, at least later on today, when you come up here and discover me painting in your reception. I'm assuming you've never seen me paint before, so welcome. There will be a few other people watching today. Some of my regular viewers, no doubt, will be on board. And Caroline and Greg, I want to let you know that I'm going to be talking to two sets of people pretty much throughout the entire evening. And later this evening, by the way, two things will happen. One is I'll have a better microphone. And the other is there will be a live band, no doubt playing copyrighted music. So it's very likely that much of the night I will be flying under the radar, so to speak. I will be broadcasting without any live sound. That's because YouTube gets really tired. It's really tired of sending me all these nice notifications that I have, yes, truly, once again, violated all copyright law by broadcasting live at a wedding reception while the band is playing. So, but for now, I'm here before the band. Again, Caroline and Greg, just for information, it's just coming up at 4 o'clock. So you guys haven't even made your way down to the Venetian room next door to me here to begin the ceremony. I'm sure you're being photographed somewhere on the grounds of the Breakers as we speak. The other people I'll be talking to are my old friends and new friends and art students. So forgive me, I'm going to go back and forth between talking to a bride and groom who've never seen me before, probably, and talking to art students. So let's That's what's going to be going on. So one of the first questions is isn't me. Good. All's well. So let me go look at my disaster. There's nobody. The first question someone would have at this point in my training process is, what in the heck are you doing?
I have a quick question. I'm Katie from the Breakers. How are you?
I'm
talked
good.
to you
Hi,
earlier
Katie. Yeah,
today.
excellent.
Has the bride and groom seen you yet?
No.
Or not yet? Oh, good.
No.
And I have a quick question because I know
Yeah.
for tomorrow, so I think because of the weather, we're going to end up being inside, and their brunch was in here. Could you continue on during their brunch, or it doesn't work that way? Tomorrow morning, like we're going to be here from 9 to 11 in this room.
Oh, certainly. I love company.
You would continue on maybe in here?
Yeah, if it's okay with me, it's okay with you. If it's okay with you, it's okay with me.
Really? Oh my God, that would
absolutely.
be awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then after that, then you still need a couple hours after that to keep finishing.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I'll be painting as much of the day as it takes.
Gotcha.
Hopefully not too much, but
Okay.
yeah. Great,
Perfect.
Kate.
All
Good
right,
to meet
thank
you.
you.
You're welcome. Got caught with my mask off right there. All right, back to the painting. The first question any sensible person might say is, what the heck are you doing? And all you old-timers, all you regulars know you get tired of hearing this all the time. Hello, Alexander Almeida. Better than Barbara.
I asked them what happened.
I will have better sound later in the evening. All right, why? Well, okay, so why do I start? Because I start for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. My technique is always evolving, and I've evolved to the point that I start all of my paintings with a wild and crazy underpainting that has absolutely nothing to do with the final. It's not quite true. It's actually related to the final image only in a negative, counteractive, contrasting manner. That is to say, let me explain it. And here's a photograph that I took a little while ago of the room that I'm in. So that's going to be more or less the painting with the bride and groom. Probably a little bit to the left of center, I think. Not sure. Oops. All right, so you'll notice that this part of the painting up here, this part of the scene is quite warm. Brown, orange, warm light. And then there's a big shaft of cool right here. Now, the light that I'm going to paint in this scene won't be quite as bright as that photograph. So that's why the painting up here is going to be warm, and here. So I've painted an underpainting mostly of cool. The finished painting is going to be mostly cool. That's why I painted mostly warm. So it's related to the final subject only in a contrasting manner. I'm going to go and do some. So I have no idea whatsoever which of these marks will still be visible in the finished painting. All right? Therefore, my only responsibility, so to speak, at this point is to make sure that all the marks on the canvas are beautiful. Because I don't know which ones are going to show up. So if they're all beautiful, then it doesn't matter which ones show up. It sounds a little simplistic, but that's the fact of the matter. Hello, Sherry's Carvings from Hendersonville. How about that? Yeah, I'm from Raleigh. Maybe you know that. I'm in North Carolina. And painting today in Palm Beach. First time to Palm Beach. Evidently, I've been through it before, or West Palm Beach anyway. But I've never been to Palm Beach. And my wife and I have had a delightful time here already at the famous, world famous Breakers Hotel. All right, now I'm going to start drawing. I have these wonderful long-handled brushes. And for those of you, I've got this photograph down here right in front of me. Sorry, it's just out of your range. I'm trying to decide right now what color to start drawing with. I usually like to start with a light-ish color. And I'm certainly using the brushes, the handles of my brush to match angles. Does that make sense? Either I look at the photograph, or better yet, I turn around and look at the literal scene behind me and hold my brushes up. Just hold my brushes up to get the angle correct. Close to correct is more accurate. To speak a little more accurately, I try to get these marks as close to correct as I can, but I'm assuming the whole time that they are not correct. Does that make sense? I'm trying to make them correct, but I'm just assuming that most of them will not be quite correct. They might be close. But this is my first drawing, my first stab, if you will, my first stab at drawing the ballroom, the scene in front of me. And before the painting is finished, I will have drawn the scene somewhere between 12 and 15 times. So, that means I'm going to try to get it as correct as I can this time, but I'm very much aware of the fact that I have much more tries to get it correct. More correct as the evening progresses, and then even tomorrow I won't quite finish the painting tonight. So I started at, let's call it 4 o'clock. I will paint till the reception is over, which is 11 o'clock tonight, which means I will paint for 7 hours, pretty much nonstop. Or a little break to eat something quickly, and then a little break to edit the photographs. The main part of this painting is going to be essentially a portrait of Caroline and Greg, either here or here. They'll be the most prominent part of the painting. In other words, I'm going to take photographs, I'm going to take pictures of them during their first dance, and then pick the best photograph, of course, of all the pictures that I take, and then place them in this environment. Place them in the painting, not accurately. In other words, I'll take a picture of them wherever they are, and I will place them carefully in this environment. And for those of you who are not Caroline and Greg, this is fairly standard procedure for me. I have no guarantee, of course, that Caroline and Greg will ever see this video. That's up to them. But part of the reason I do it is because I'm going to be doing at least 2, if not 3 hours of painting before they even get here. And some of the most interesting part, like what I just did already, in fact, the most interesting part of the painting process, in my opinion, is what I'm doing right now. And so, since I'm here partly to entertain Greg and Elizabeth, Greg and Caroline, sorry, my wife and I have some old dear friends named Greg, so that's so funny, it just came out. I'm here to entertain Caroline and Greg, and since we're going to miss so much of this part of the process, then that's part of the reason I broadcast, of course. Partly also because for all you regulars who enjoy watching me. Now, I have a mistake. Alas, not my first one. Well, it is my first one. Won't be my last. Let's see, you guys are chatting up a storm over here. Hello, David. I understand about the noise. Let me see if I can do anything better about the noise. I mean, about the volume here. I will have, there we go. I will have better sound later in the evening. That's all I can say at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. So right off the bat, either I've made a mistake or I've made a wise judgment. There are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half large windows. And at the moment I was just doing 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. And in a way that's a mistake. Hang on, I'm asking myself, because sometimes, now this is really tricky, sometimes those mistakes are intuitive. I knew I made a messed up right here, and I made an adjustment. And I can change my mind right now if I so choose, and I can make, but I feel like that modification is actually a good one. And nobody probably ever looking at this painting ever, except unless they've seen this video, of course. No one will ever look at the painting, frankly, just between you and me. No one will ever look at the painting and say, hey, wait a minute, he doesn't have enough windows in there. But I am sincerely, truly, honestly asking myself that question is, did I accidentally improve the scene or did I just screw up? Well, I did screw up. Again, many times such screw-ups are your intuition is doing something. And I really think that's the case here.
So I'm basically moving it, so I'm moving one top.
In other words, I'm kind of shortening the room is the effect. And I think it's a better composition. It's actually, in reality, it's longer and skinnier than I'm anticipating. Standing back and looking at it. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, but I'm going to stick with it. All right, now, I don't know. Let me just make a few marks here. Yeah, in fact, Greg and Caroline, who I have not seen at all. I think I'm just trying to figure so better there. Here's a tip for you art students. Whenever you're doing an interior room, you can imagine I've done literally hundreds of interiors because of all my wedding painting. So you're painting actually inside a cube, right? An elongated, usually a rectangular cube. And almost always, the far corner should go at about the 1/3 or 1/4, that you don't face the opposite wall usually and make it flat. So you pick the opposite corner and put it right there. If I were painting in down behind where I'm standing right now, I would put the corner here. So that's just a little tip for any artists who are watching or might be watching. And I can give you just one of those quick little tips learned, as all little tips, learned the hard way. Or in this case, learned just by doing many of them. The ceiling in this room is quite extraordinary. And I'm going to try to keep the essence of that, of course, without overdoing it, because the focus of the painting, of course, will be the bride and groom. There's also a lovely checkerboard floor, stone, marble floor, whatever it is. If I say tile, in this case, I actually mean literal tile. not like what most of us grew up, with tile floor in our kitchens. This is not that, you may be sure. The building, I read up some of the history. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. While I'm talking here, let me turn you around just for fun. Once again, this building was built in 1825. The original, the Breakers, was built in 1897, opened in 1897, burned down. Get this, imagine this. We think life is so hard. It's hard for me. Let me just see the picture.
No, I know. Everyone's like always going through a hard stuff.
By a New York architect. And it was designed after one of the Medici palazzas in what's the name? What's the name of the city? Florence. Right. Back to work. So Italianate is definitely the name of the style. And as you just saw, those extravagant ceilings throughout the main lobby and on the hallways, the restaurant, the fancy restaurant. The whole place, the whole Breakers covers 40 acres. Several pools. So on and so forth. A lot of fun. This is all, as you know, soaking wet. But I can do at least one thing before I take a break to let this dry. And that is, I can do some drawing with pencils. I have to make some judgments here. Before I would like to, I would rather not make these judgments. That is to say, where to put the tables. So I am not necessarily going to be putting the tables realistically where they are in the room. Once again, I say to my students all the time, remember, if you're a painter, if you're an artist, nobody's going to hang a painting on the wall, say, and right next to it hang a photograph of the scene and say, okay, how'd I do? Right? No, people do not do that. So I'm not being graded, so to speak, based on how accurate, in this case, how accurate the placement of my tables is, although there is a bride and groom table. Glad I caught that right here. So, sweetheart table, is that what that's called? Bride and groom table, anyway. Right here. But they're not going to be sitting at it, because they're going to be dancing. All right. So I'm trying to, and I may very well change my mind about where these, I can change my mind several times before I get into big trouble. change my mind about placement of many of these things.
How are you, sir?
Very good.
Another masterpiece?
I hope so. I think so now I'm making additions and changes, and as I said earlier, I will be. So this is my, by the way, second drawing. Right, the first one was in pale green paint. Oh, and why did I choose green, by the way? Because this is a decidedly non-green scene that I'm painting, and that's precisely why I chose green, because that will create an interesting, beautiful, one might say, a beautiful contrast or vibration even with the finished. Now again, I don't know how much of this green, some of that will no doubt show up in the finished green. It's just little tiny bits and slivers here and there. So that's why I picked green, precisely because it's not realistic, right? So it's contrasty. All right, then again, Greg and Caroline have never watched me paint, I presume, although probably it sounds to me like Greg's mom or Caroline's mom and dad have seen me paint. Perhaps there's finally work complete. So let me give a little bit more explanation. Why in the world, what in the world am I doing drawing with pencils? So glad you asked. Thank you for asking that question. First of all, these are, I show you guys all the time, pencil manufactured by Terry's called Jumbo Jet Black, right? So they're sort of, it's not a charcoal pencil. It's not quite as greasy as a grease pencil. Wax-based pencil, or technically speaking, an oil-based pencil. But I started using these pencils, I don't remember, 4 or 5 years ago. And I've fallen in love with the effect that they produce. Tell you what, gang, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take advantage of this moment then to switch over to improved sound quality. So I'm going to end this broadcast right here and then resume the same broadcast in just a little while. Okay, thanks for watching. Be back. All right, we're back. Thank you for hanging in there, a few of you. So I was talking about pencils when I finished, when I took a break. Again, I've been doing this, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It's just part of my evolution. I just actually discovered it when I was doing one time a whole bunch of abstract paintings, which I do on occasion. I enjoy doing abstracts very much. The snob side of me, forgive me, says I enjoy doing good abstracts, and not all the abstracts you and I have looked at are what I consider good. Anyway. So it was while I was doing abstract paintings that I discovered that I really liked adding scratchy pencil marks to my paintings. And in fact, I liked it so much that when I came back to doing my normal representational stuff like this, that I brought the pencils with me. So I will be using them at several points throughout the painting process.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
And as you can see, indeed, pencils are good for making lines, right? So they're good for drawing, right? They're good for capturing the essence of an image, of course. But even more than that, in my case, I use them because of their pure abstract quality. I just like the way the scratchy pencils look next to the smushy paint. If I can call the paint smushy, okay? I like the way it looks when the scratchy pencils are mixed into the smushy paints. All right. Then finally, while I'm being all self-focused, let's get off this real quick. But again, thinking of particular Caroline and Greg, you've probably never seen me before. You've noticed I paint and draw with two hands. Mr. Nelson, why do you paint with two hands? Because I don't have three. There you go. I do in fact think all artists should paint with two hands. I really do. I used to be very much more lenient with my students about that. I used to be much more lenient than I am now. I'm a lot more of a stickler saying, nah, you should be painting with two hands. But some people heed my advice, and many, of course, do not. and the explanation for that opinion I go to often to the world of music. I'm also a musician, and virtually every musician you know uses two hands. Nobody thinks anything of it, especially a drummer and an organist. My goodness, they use two hands and 2 feet and everything, right? Anyway, so I think artists just somehow they adopted a lazy attitude about things. I didn't start doing two hands till I was in my early 50s, so it's not something I've done for my whole life by any means. But it is a tremendous benefit. Not only can you paint or draw faster when you use two hands, which you can, of course, just makes sense. But I believe it opens up, really cuts loose is the feeling, opens up the free expression, both sides of your brain kind of thing, get plugged in. These are chairs. I've drawn a lot of chairs in my life. Whoever invented these chairs however many years ago, man, I imagine they're a rich person. I bet 100,000 of these chairs being used every Saturday across America. All right, I think, at a stopping point. No, let me show you this. Let me show you real quickly a good trick. When you're painting in acrylics, now, I haven't mentioned yet, all this is acrylic, but I will be switching over to oil later in the evening, right? And there are many times that I can't proceed with the next layer until this layer is dry. Make sense? And here's a trick for making it dry more quickly. I have a damp brush here. It's not dripping wet, but it's damp, and it's 4 inches wide, as you can see. And I'm simply going to brush through, especially looking for any areas, because this is all dry, of course, except for the places here and there where the paint was applied quite thickly for you English majors. The paint was applied thickly. What a weird word. So what I've just done is smeared. I'm going to try it again a little bit more, get a little smaller brush. So I've simply facilitated the fast drying process. Now it's important that you do this with long, bold, fast strokes. You can't smudgy. That would make a horrible mark. So in other words, I just smeared the wet paint, but I smeared it beautifully by doing long, bold strokes. Get it? Any stroke applied with vigor, confidence, boldness, strength, and speed, any stroke applied in such a manner is going to be a good-looking stroke. So I think, before I proceed, hang on, I'm going to pick up a slightly damper. I can do basically the same thing. Quite dry, almost. I think I'll keep broadcasting. Let me just take a minute and let that dry a little bit more. Most of my acrylic layers are transparent. Let me show you my paints here real quickly again for those of you who are not familiar with me. This is white, so of course that's opaque. All these others are transparent. I haven't even opened the brown yet. That won't, if it gets opened at all, it'll be late in the evening. So I'm building up layers and layers and layers of transparent paint, and that's key concept, that it's transparent layers, not opaque, not even at this point, not even translucent. All right? So the buildup will be gradual, again, transparent, clear as glass, clear as glass, clear as glass, so you can see everything underneath. I'm giving that a minute to dry, and I'm also thinking about where to go next. I don't know what to do next. I'm going to turn around and take another picture of the room, so the color, the decorations and the lighting is getting more accurate. So let me take another picture.
Be right back.
I want to take it from the same viewpoint, of course. Close enough, I think. Beautiful, eh? Little Canadian coming out there. Eh? All right, so now I have a more up-to-date image to paint from. Get you all pointed the right direction again so that you see my phone there that helps me with reference, and of course my paints. But I've got to move this now because I can't drown my phone with wet paint. That would not be good. All right. I'm going to do some glazing right now. So when I mentioned earlier that the subject matter, the scene, will be drawn anywhere between 12 and 15 times before the painting is finished. Not every layer do I call a drawing layer. And this is one of those that is not drawn. This is just large, bold areas of color. opening a bottle of acrylic medium so that I can apply this in a very thin, abstract manner. And as you can see, I'm focusing at the moment on the cool blue-green color coming in through these windows. All right, that's good enough. I'm going to rinse these brushes out real quick because I'm going to do this same or similar thing now, doing the warm yellow, orange, brown, but I'm not going to use brown as I'm going to build up to the color brown, but not by using brown, but by doing the layers of color. So a lot of orange right now, a little bit of yellow. That's probably good enough. And again, I'm going to add acrylic medium to my brushes so that I can put this on thin. Again, the key concept here is transparent. I'm not covering up all the earlier layers. If you did this with an opaque paint, everything I have done up to this point would be essentially wasted, right? Because I'd be covering it up. But because I'm using transparent paint, not wasting all that. I just dipped my brush, by the way. I don't do this very often. My brush was already dirty, so to speak, with orange, yellow-orange paint. I just dipped it in blue, so I'm getting a combination, but I don't do that very often. See, that has a little bit of a, it's grayish, a little bit of a muddy color. And I don't want too much mud on my painting, but I'm okay with doing a little bit. All right, that's probably good enough right there. And I don't have to wait for the next layer, because the next layer is one of my favorite layers or phases. Again, for anybody who's watching me and you're not accustomed to the way that I work, I think one of my idiosyncrasies, of course, syncrasies the idiots have, one of my idiosyncrasies is I have, for some reason, broken down the painting process into steps, distinct, separate steps. Hello, Michael. And all the rest of you too. All right, so back to my nice long-handled brushes. And now I'm doing opaque white, of course, on top of wet stuff. So, to some extent, the wet paint will pick up and mix with the wet paint that's already on the canvas, to some extent. I don't want it to mix too much, because if I mix it a lot, then it will simply turn into an opaque, like in this case, blue-green paint. And I don't want opaque colors. Let me cut to the chase here again, for those, especially those of you who are not familiar with the way that I work. Opaque colors are the enemy. Opaque colors are ugly. Now, not every artist knows that. I'm quite the odd man out when it comes to this method of painting, but don't feel sorry for me. That is to say, in the 20th or 21st century, not that many artists paint the way I do, focusing on layers of transparent color. But again, don't feel bad for me, because guess who does agree with me in this method of painting? The answer is every great artist you can name who painted before 1890. And there's a long historical reason. I'm not at war with the process that got us to this point. But I don't want to get into it tonight. I don't have the energy for that right now. I love history and I love philosophy, so I love talking about it, but not right at the moment. So how we got, that is to say, how we got from all the great artists you've ever heard of painting, like, in a sense, like me, not, I mean, obviously, my approach is very contemporary in its application, but it's very old-fashioned in that I am painting in layers of transparent color. So there's a very definite history about how that came about. I don't want to get into it at the moment, so we'll just let that stay there. But that is indeed one of my characteristic features of the Dan Nelson painting. Layers and layers and layers of transparent color. Now, right now, of course, I'm not doing transparent, I'm doing white. So it's layers and layers and layers of transparent color intermixed, interspersed with periodic layers of opaque, mostly white. All right, so now I am at a place where I need to take a real break. So I'm gonna, because I need that white to dry. And that's gonna take 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm gonna pause the broadcast and let me think, should I? Let me think. Should I start another broadcast? I called this one Starting the Painting. No, y'all don't care, sorry. I think I'll keep the broadcast going, so I'm going to let this be one long broadcast because it's still, I would still consider all of this the starting process of Caroline and Greg. All right, but I'm going to take about a 15 for you guys that are watching live. I'm going to take a 15 or 20 minute break for all of that white to dry. Then I'll come back. Okay, thanks for watching. Whenever I do a painting of the bride and groom first dance, I always do from a low angle because I want to look up at the bride and groom because I want to make them heroic in dimension, stature, appearance, and so forth. That also means that I can put a lot of other people in the background and everybody else will be shorter, will be lower than they will be. So let me turn you around now, see if that works the way I've started the painting already. Give me a second, let's get you pointed the right direction. So once again, I'm thinking bride and groom probably here. The reason is because this area is busier. The tables are further away, the windows are smaller, the corner it's busier, so I could still put them here, it's possible, but I think I want them here. Plus, there's going to be a little bit more light in this part of the painting because of the windows here. Whoops, it's still not dry. Rats. I actually thought that was drier than it is, so hang on, I'm in a little bit of a pickle here. I did my smearing trick. You can see these big long marks like that right there. And yes, by the way, almost all my smearing marks, they're not vertical. Could be, but that'd be a little bit awkward. Definitely not horizontal. That would be, you'd have to be making a statement to make them horizontal. And I don't want them almost straight. So, you know, like as if they're like slightly off. That would be awkward if they were a little bit. So mostly 45-ish, because those random lines look good. They look like a glow. They look like they're not a mistake. Of course they're not, but they'll look like they're not a mistake if they're at an angle like that. So just another tip about that trick. And like, as I said, you just saw me discover that This is still wet, so I can't do exactly what I was going to do, but I think I can do something. Hang on a second now. Let's go back to that last photograph that I just took a minute ago. As the evening as the daylight wanes, I will try to pick the ideal lighting. I'm going to exaggerate the saturation here. Let's see. Oh no, I can't. I took a whole bunch of pictures during my break. I walked around the room and took close-up shots of different elements in the room, so that, tomorrow, especially when I'm painting details, I don't want to look like a lot of no, I do want it to look. I'm not going to paint in a lot of details, but even what I do paint, of course, needs to be accurate. So anyway, so there's my latest reference photo. Let me show that to you real quick. And Caroline and Greg, your ceremony is scheduled to begin in 2 minutes. This is a surprise for Caroline and Greg. So, and I think it's still a surprise. I don't unless they snuck in here when I was taking a quick break. I'm actually going to open the brown paint. How about that? That's a little bit unusual. But why is it unusual? Because most of the time, I am not going to be wanting to kill color in my painting. Most of the time, I want to exaggerate or play with color. So that's why I don't want to do too much of this brown, because brown is a color killer. Get it? Nothing wrong with a brownish painting. But in a sense, you have to be doing an intentional brownish painting, and that is not what I want to do here. I want this painting to be more magical than that. That brings up a topic I was thinking about talking with you guys. Again, I'm talking half the time. Part of my mind is thinking about Caroline and Greg, who, of course, who may never watch this. Would one of you please let Caroline and Greg know that I talked about them a whole bunch over here, so that they'll come and watch this video. Then the rest of the time, I'm talking to my regular viewers, several of whom are regulars, and many of whom are painters themselves. Some of them student, fairly early journey painters, others quite accomplished. And we have quite a long history of camaraderie on my YouTube channel. But the subject I was thinking about, I'm always thinking, of course, just as you are, and I'm trying to think how to say this. I'm talking to my fellow artists, and especially perhaps by the way, did you see that? That's supposed to be a mullion straight across there, right? And I just made it messy. Yep, did that on purpose. I'll clean it up a little bit probably later. All right, let me just for what it's worth, and it might not be worth anything, but when let's say I walk into a restaurant or a coffee shop, not so much well, sometimes, not necessarily so much an art gallery, especially a high-level art gallery. I wouldn't feel this way, but, or let's say if I were to do a search, an online search for wedding painting, just in case, as you can imagine, maybe I have done that one time in my life. I want to give you again, you being my perhaps art student. Let me tell you how I respond most often to a perusal. I would say, now unless I have stepped into or pulled up online, unless I've pulled up forgive me, I'm not sure how to say this, but a high-level art gallery. I'm just going to leave it at that, whatever that means. Unless I've pulled up a high-level art gallery, in which case everything I'm about to say it does not apply. But if I look up, like for instance, if I were to pick up my phone and say, okay, landscape paintings, and then I hit Google image, so that I'm faced immediately with scores and hundreds and even thousands, if I care to keep looking, of landscape paintings. I'm going to sound a little bit mean here for a minute, but I hope you'll bear with me because my purpose is not to be mean, but to be instructive. As I flip through, same thing as if I do, say, wedding paintings, for instance, and I'm flipping through Google images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the way you do, pretty quickly. Say roughly I'm trying to think of a number. Let's say roughly 90 something. I'm trying to think 90 what? Not 99, that's too high. 90, just a flat 9 out of 10? No, way less than that. I mean, way higher than that. So let's say 95 out of 100 paintings that I look like. Again, I'm trying not to be mean or elitist or snobby, but just giving you a realistic presentation. I'm going to say what you think I'm going to say, but then I want to follow it up with something that might be instructive. About 90% of them I go, no, nice try, good job, no. But that sounds mean. That just sounds like, somebody being a snob. So let me de-snob that for just a minute, will you? Give me just a minute. By the way, I don't know if you can tell or not, but I just switched from drawing in brown to drawing in blue. Why? Variety. All right. Again, forgive me, that sounds horribly elitist, snobby, arrogant, whatever you want to call it. It does, I know that. But let me try to back up and say, no, I want to give you the why. Because of the 95% of the paintings that I look at and I go, yeah, no, no. About 90% of those I could put in the same category. That is to say, I dismiss them visually. Not dismiss, I can appreciate. I do appreciate every human attempt at creating. So I don't have a disdain at all. It sounds like I do, but I don't. I don't. But if I put on my teacher hat for a moment, I think the bride and groom are going there, so I don't want quite that much energy right there. The reason that they don't win, so to speak, my approval, and again, forgive me, that sounds awfully snobby. I'm going to stop saying that now, okay? Just going to speak without making apologies, left, right, and center. The reason they don't win my approval is 90% of them for the same reason, or the same category, and here it is. I open the image, look at the painting, whatever it may be. The artist was primarily focused on capturing, rendering, drawing, accurately capturing the the object, the image, the person, whatever it may be, okay? And that applies to, again, about 90% of the paintings that one would look at, say, like online or in a mid-level art gallery. And the artist is focused. Now, what's wrong with that? Again, being a snob only because I want to be an instructor for a moment. What's wrong with that is, believe it or not, and this sounds, I'm going to put it in a very strange way to make for the shock value, then explain it a little bit more. People don't care what you draw. People don't care. Let me focus here on this. People don't care. They think they do, but they don't care whether I can accurately render, I'll call these the Palladian windows, period. They don't care really very much whether I can accurately capture Palladian windows such as one might find, say, in an historic landmark hotel, like, say, for instance, maybe the Breakers in Palm Beach, okay? And I'm playing word games with you a little bit, I confess, I admit that, but bear with me. Oh, wait a minute. Since I left, the wedding cake got put in right here, so let's make sure that we get that wedding cake. It's right here. All right, what people do care about, and I'm going to explain my terms here in just a little bit. Is anybody watching? I don't seem to be getting any chats. Let's restart the chat. Hang on. Nope, nobody's saying anything. I'm assuming I'm broadcasting, right? Right, broadcasting, right? Yeah, 8 of you are watching. All right, just nobody's saying anything. All right, people don't care, so to speak, that I can, shall we say, accurately or believably render the windows, Palladian windows, I'm going to call them that, in a big fancy hotel that might be called the Breakers in Palm Beach. Okay? What they do care about, turns out, what they do care about is what I, the artist, do with the Palladian windows. Now, let me clarify my terms a little bit, because that would be very misleading if I just left it there. So let me make a slight correction. I don't get artistic credit for accurately rendering the windows, but I do get eliminated, vetoed. I do get scorned, shall we say. I do get dissed. I don't know which word, I'm trying to think of what word. I get disapproved. I receive approbation. I receive disapproval if, in fact, I fail to render said windows with accuracy. Okay, so let me restate that. Now this is going to make a little bit more sense. You don't get credit, artistic credit, for getting something right. Now, a lot of non-artists, that's another story, but a lot of non-artists that think the whole point is to capture a accurate photographic representation of the subject at hand. Okay, obviously you can tell by my conversation thus far that that is not at all what I consider to be the high ambition of an art or being an artist. So I don't get credit for being accurate, but I do get vetoed. I do get eliminated. If it was if it was football, I don't get any points on the board. I don't get any touchdowns or field goals for accomplishing similitude, accuracy, realism. But if, in fact, I failed to achieve realism, I get, so to speak, booed off the field. I'm out of the game. I get kicked. I get soccer. I get red carded. I'm out of the game. Whew. That's the sad, tragic reality of being a visual artist. So that's why I say, and here again, forgive me, Caroline and Greg, I'm talking to my art friends here for a minute. I believe the best art journey, hypothetical art journey, is one in which the artist spends the first half in sort of philosophical terms here, not mathematical. The first half of their art journey is spent learning how to accurately capture stuff. So that's prerequisite. Not everybody follows this journey, and that's, of course, that's all right. It's their business, and so on and so forth. But I think this is ideal. So to speak, as a young artist, you spend the first half of your journey learning how to capture stuff. And at some point, and not everybody makes this transition, but many do, most do probably, not all. Some stay in the world of super realism, hyper realism, very realism, photorealism, whatever you want to call it. And that's not my job to fix them or change them. I have dear friends, some of whom are more famouser and more richer. They sell for more. They win a lot more competitions than me. So this is not pure snobbery, because I have friends who do super realism, and they're super people, and so on. But, in my opinion, the goal of art is to create beauty, and beauty and similitude are not synonymous. So let me just go back to the beginning. People don't care whether I accurately render. But if I make big mistakes in, say, perspective, which would be real easy in this case, then I do receive their approbation. I do get kicked out of the club. I get red carded. I'm out of the game. People don't like my painting. So when I open, say, what I mentioned, walk into a mid-range gallery or look up, landscape painting on Google, 95% of the paintings I look at are going to be people in that first half of their art journey. And good for them, go for it. But the reason I even bother teaching is because I really do want the whole world, all the artists in the world, to be better. I really do. I know that sounds crazy. It's not even a competition like I want to be the best. I want everybody to be best and better. And part of the reason I even bother saying it that much is because it's true. Many of the artists, let's say I walk into a coffee shop and see 30 paintings on the wall by a local artist. 95% of the time, that local artist is going to be striving to capture the thing. And that's where they've gone off, if you will. Instead, so what is it that I am trying to do? I'll wrap this up real quickly. This rant. I'm trying to accurately capture this room, right? The room that I've shown you several times, right? Trying to capture this room. But the capturing of the room, if you will, is just a thinly veiled excuse for color, shape, value, light darks, line, texture, composition, line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Those are my 6 elements of design. All right, so most of you, if you're still watching me, found that dreadfully boring. Forgive me. It's the art teacher. I hope that some art student will listen to that and gain some wisdom. It's too late now. I already said it all. Gave you the whole enchilada. By the way, let's go back and count. How many times have I drawn this now? Green, pencil, white, brown and blue and red. That was 4. Now I'm going to get in white. This is drawing number 5. I mentioned early in this process that I'll typically draw a subject matter between 12 and 15 times. So this is number 5. I call it drawing if there's a fair degree of detail or accuracy demanded. So I don't call the glazed, the large, big brush stuff in between. I don't consider that to be drawing per se. That's glazing. So that's the distinction that I'm making there. Yeah, I'm hoping that the bride and groom are going to be there. I haven't seen the bride and groom. So I might actually take a quick break here. No, I'll tell you, I'm going to end this broadcast here in just a minute. And when I come back, I will start a fresh one. All right? Yeah, this is a good place for me to stop right there. Thanks for watching, y'all. Again, congratulations, Caroline and Greg, who are getting married right through those doors. And I'm going to end this broadcast and be back with a new one